Welcome to part 7 in our studies related to Asian art. This is part 7, I think. In our last segment, we looked at Todaji, some Buddhist temple, and China. We're going to be traveling to Indonesia and looking at Borobudur, which is another Buddhist site. It's quite spectacular. So this idea of Borobudur, we're going to explore this idea of Borobudur and the concept of path in Buddhism. Paths have been pervasive in human civilization. We are all familiar with the streets, trails, and lanes along which we routinely travel. Ancient Roman roads are utilized in some places even today. In contemporary computer culture, we follow paths on web pages as we find our way to the information or experience we are searching for or find unexpectedly. There are simulated paths and complex first-person virtual reality video environments where role-playing games formulate their content around the path to be conquered. The idea of a path is an important concept in Buddhism and is essential in understanding the meaning and purpose of one of the most remarkable and impressive monuments in the world, Borobudur. So it is located on the island of Java in Indonesia. The rulers of the Sailendra dynasty built the Temple of Borobudur around 800 CE as a monument to the Buddha. The temple, or Candi in Javanese, pronounced Chandi. It's spelled C-A-N-D-I, but it's pronounced like Chandi. Fell into disuse roughly 100 years after its completion, when, for still unknown reasons, the ruler of Java relocated the governing center to another part of the island. The British Lieutenant Governor of Java, Sir Thomas Stamford Raffles, only rediscovered the site in 1814, upon hearing reports from islanders of an incredible sanctuary deep within the island's interior. Chandi Borobudur's design was conceived by the poet, thinker, and architect Gandharma, considered by many today to be a man of great vision and devotion. The temple has been described in a number of ways. Its basic structure resembles that of a pyramid, yet it has been also referred to as a shrine, a stupa, and a sacred mountain. In fact, the name Sailendra literally means Lord of the Mountains. While the temple exhibits characteristics of all these architectural configurations, its overall plan is that of a three-dimensional mandala, a diagram of the cosmos used for meditation, and it is in this sense where the richest understanding of the monument occurs. Set high upon a hill, vertically enhanced by its builders to achieve a greater elevation, Borobudur consists of a series of open-air passageways that radiate around a central axis mundi, which is the cosmic axis. Remember, the axis mundi is sort of that transition from heaven to earth, or devotees circumambulate clockwise along the walkways that gradually ascend to its uppermost level. At Borobudur, geometry and theology all instruct adherence towards the ultimate goal of enlightenment. Meticulously carved relief sculptures mediate a physical and spiritual journey that guides pilgrims progressively toward the higher states of consciousness. So here you're looking at an aerial view. The entire site contains 504 statues of the Buddha, 1,460 stone reliefs on the walls, and opposite the balustrades, which is sort of like a railing, decorate the first 4 galleries with an additional 12,000 1,012 decorative reliefs augmenting this concept of the path. The relief sculptures narrate the Buddha's teachings, which are the Dharma, depicts various events related to his past lives, Jataka tales, and illustrates didactic stories taken from important Buddhist scriptures or sutras. Interestingly, another 160 relief sculptures adorn the base of the monument, but are concealed behind the stone buttresses that were added shortly after the building's construction in order to further support the structure's weight. The hidden narrative reliefs were photographed when they were discovered in the late 19th century, before the stones were put back to help ensure the temple's stability. The 160 hidden panels do not form a continuous story, but each panel provides one complete illustration of cause and effect. There are depictions of blameworthy activities, from gossip to murder, where there's a corresponding punishment. There are also praiseworthy activities that include charity and pilgrimages to sanctuaries and their subsequent rewards. The pains of hell and the pleasures of heaven are also illustrated. There are scenes of daily life, complete with the full panorama of samsara, the endless cycle of birth and death. The story starts from the glorious descent of the Lord Buddha from the Tushita heaven and ends with his first sermon in Deer Park near Benares. This relief shows the birth of Buddha as Prince Siddhartha, son of King Suddhodana and Queen Maya. The story is preceded by 27 panels showing various preparations in heaven and on earth to welcome the final incarnation of the Bodhisattva before descending from Tushita heaven. The Bodhisattva entrusted his crown to his successor, the future Buddha Maitreya. He descended on the earth in the shape of a white elephant with 6 tusks, penetrated to Queen Maya's right womb. Queen Maya had a dream of this event, which was interpreted that her son would become either a sovereign or a Buddha. So again, we have these sort of origin stories, Immaculate Conception, comes to mind when I think of, the creation of Jesus. And so again, when we're looking at these sacred sites and sacred art, and, try to kind of parallel it with your own experience of religion, in particular your Catholic religion, if you happen to be Catholic. Oops, I'm not done. While Queen Maya felt that it was time to give birth, she went to Lumbini Park outside of Cal Pilvastu City. She stood under the plusk tree holding one branch with her right hand, and she gave birth to her son, Prince Siddhartha. The story on the panels continues until the prince becomes Buddha. And again, we'll be looking at some Christian architecture that talks about the life of Jesus from his birth to his death. But note the use, it's a term we'll look at again when we get to ancient Greek sculpture, but there's a term called horror-vacui. It's spelled Horror, Vacui. It's 2 words. And it's really this idea of no negative space. So you can see in this relief sculpture how every little bit of space has something in it. And it's this notion that evil spirits, if there was too much negative space left, could come through. So that's why it's called horror-vacui. And so it's an aesthetic that we'll see not only in this time and culture, but other historical periods and cultures as well. So horror-vacui, fear of negative space. All right. Moving past the base and through the four galleries, the devotees emerge onto the three upper terraces, encountering 72 stupas, each containing a three-dimensional sculpture of a seated Buddha within a stone lattice work. At the temple's apex sits the large central stupa, a symbol of the enlightened mind. So it's pretty elaborate. While the sheer size and scope of a mandala structure such as this, which remember it's kind of, the whole site is supposed to kind of represent a mandala, makes the site worthy of admiration, it is important to understand how the experience of Borobudur relates to the philosophic and spiritual underpinnings of the Buddhist religion. Um, um, Since its inception, roughly 2,500 years ago, Buddhism has directly engaged what it sees as the paradoxical nature of human existence. The most essential tenet the religion promotes is the impermanent, transient nature of existence. Transcendental wisdom via the Dharma, the Noble Eightfold Path, hinges on recognizing that attachment to the idea of a fixed, immutable self is a delusion. Enlightenment entails embracing the concept of no self, which they call anatta, understood to be at the heart of eliminating the suffering and dissatisfaction, dukkha, or of sentient beings. This is the ultimate message expressed in the sacred scripture that are solidified in artistic magnificence along the stone walls and railings of Borobudur. The physical movement of circumambulating the structure symbolizes the non-physical or spiritual path of enlightenment. In a real sense, then, the concept of path within Borobudur monumentalizes the impermanent. Like a river that is never the same from moment to moment, to physically move along the path while meditating on the spiritual message of the sutras is meant to help one fully embrace the Buddha's paradoxical message of impermanence. All right, we'll look at some more relief sculpture. The text illustrated on the wall refer to pathways as well. For instance, the Gada Vuha Sutra forms a major segment of the temple's upper galleries. The last chapter of a larger text called the Flower Garland Sutra. It relates the story of Sudhana, a youth who commences a journey to meet 53 teachers while seeking the path to enlightenment. The concept of path, in quotes, is a central theme in the text. He eventually meets an enlightened being, a bodhisattva, named Saman Badhara. Excerpts from the larger sutra illustrate the concept under discussion. I will lead those who have lost the way to the right road. I will be a bright light for those in the dark night, and cause the poor and destitute to uncover hidden treasures. The bodhisattva impartially benefits all living beings in this manner. So remember, a bodhisattva is someone that has achieved nirvana or enlightenment, but chooses to stay behind to help others reach that goal. A vow to shut the door to evil destinies and open the right path of humans, gods, and that of nirvana. Once any sentient beings see the Buddha, it will cause them to clear away habitual obstructions and forever abandon devilish actions. This is the path traveled by illumination. Sentient beings are blinded by ignorance, always confused. The light of Buddha illuminates the path of safety to rescue them and cause suffering to be removed. All sentient beings are on a false path. Buddha shows them the right path, inconceivably causing all worlds to be vessels of truth. All right. So the idea of moving and this is something we talked about with sacred space as well. Darkness to light is an important element in a way of sort of creating mystery and sort of creating, um, you know, or um, creating this idea of entering into a sacred space. So this movement from darkness to light is the final element of the experience of Borobudur. The temple's pathway takes one from an earthly realm of desire, represented and documented on the hidden narratives of the structure's earthbound base, through the world of forms, um, as expounded on the narratives carved along the four galleries set at right angles, until one finally emerges to the realm of formlessness, as symbolized and manifested in the upper circular terraces crowned with the 72 stupas. However, the symbolization of enlightenment these stupas represent is not intended to be merely aesthetic. Buddhist stupas and mandalas are understood as spiritual technologies that harness spiritual energies in the creation of sacred space. The repetition of form and the circumambulatory progress of the pilgrim mimic and thereby access the cosmological as a microcosm. The clockwise movement around the cosmic center reproduces the macrocosmic path of the sun. Thus, when one emerges from the dark galleries representing the realms of desire and form into the light of the formlessness, circular open air upper walkways, the material effect of the light on one's physical form merges with this at the same time with their spiritual enlightenment generated by the metaphysical journey of the sacred path. Light and all its paradoxes is the ultimate goal, and we'll see that too. We see light as an important symbol, especially with Christian architecture as well. The crowning stupa of this sacred mountain is dedicated to the great sun Buddha, um, um, Vairocana. The temple sits in cosmic proximity to the nearby volcano Mount Merapi or Merapi. During certain times of the year, the path of the rising sun in the east seems to emerge out of the mountain to strike the temple's peak in radiant synergy. Light illuminates the stones in a way that is intended to be more than beautiful. The brilliance of the sight can be found in how the Borobudur mandala blends the metaphysical and physical, the symbolic and the material, the cosmological and the earthly within the structure of its physical setting and the framework of its spiritual paradox. All right, so that concludes this segment. And our next segment will be traveling to China, Korea, and Japan and looking at this a theme of nature in different art mediums. We'll be looking at some prints, printmaking. We'll be looking at architecture. We'll be looking at some sculpture as well. So stay tuned.